My name is Rebecca Kimmons. We'll start again. I'm a 1971 graduate of WVU. I got to college because I won a Board of Governors scholarship to come to study journalism at WVU. I was the first person in my family to go to college, like so many West Virginia University students. They're first generation. And I was overwhelmed when I got to WVU, a bit overwhelmed. I had the time of my life, as so many did. You know, I finished in 4 years because I knew I'd better. There wasn't any money for me to dilly-dally around. So I was serious about my studies. And I'm thankful for the changes that were wrought in me as a student at West Virginia University. And when I heard about some of these changes that were afoot, the academic transformation of West Virginia University, and I saw that many of these programs that were being cut were in the arts or those things that have to do with liberal arts, I was concerned. I have a master's degree in creative writing from the University of Iowa. When I decided to study that, there was no creative writing degree at West Virginia University, but there certainly was one at the University of Iowa, the oldest creative writing program in the world, actually. Started at the University of Iowa. So I went there and to get my master's degree. And I came back to West Virginia rather by accident. I had some unfinished business to take care of, never intending to stay in West Virginia, but I'm certainly glad that I did. I feel that I was called to be in this state, and maybe what I'm doing right now is part of my call to be here. I learned in 2007, we officially started an organization called Create West Virginia. And some people thought that we were a bunch of artists, painters, or something like that. But no, what we were was a group of business people who understood that creativity is at the basis of everything, all innovation. And you have to exercise creativity to be a good business person. West Virginia, the state of West Virginia had the lowest entrepreneurial rate in the United States in 2007 when we started this organization called Create West Virginia. I don't know where we stand right now. I think that it goes up and down, but we're always on the bottom because our people are not encouraged to be entrepreneurial. You hear it over and over again. Can we get some big companies to come in here and please give us a job? What we were saying at Create West Virginia is be a job creator. Create your own job. And this was something that the people of West Virginia had not heard before. Now, is being an entrepreneur easy? Some people are natural born entrepreneurs, but there are programs all over in schools and universities on entrepreneurship now. And they teach you what you need to know about entrepreneurship. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dan Page, who was in school here at WVU at the same time I was, graduated in 1971. And I'm very proud to have Dan Page at my side tonight as we talk about the future of WVU. So Dan, will you please tell them a bit about your own career?
Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Becky. I was in the news business and communications business most of my life. And my reason for becoming part of this is very simple. I want to be a better alumnus at WVU. I don't feel as if I've done a good job understanding what's occurring here, and I want to get a better handle on it. At the same time, I recognize that there are transformative changes occurring here, and I believe that we have an opportunity as alumni, as concerned citizens, as parents of students, to coalesce and have a conversation among ourselves, to develop and look at what the university can be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. This isn't about the moment as much as it is about the future. That's our role today. We are trying to find out whether people in this state want to do that process. That process being, let's get together and let's talk to one another and let's knock on the door of the university at the right time and say, if you thought about this, and do it in a systematic and reasonable way. That's a pie in the sky sounding idea, but if we don't start having a better understanding of what's going on here at the university or in other aspects of West Virginia life, then we probably will be victims of the future opposed to masters of the future. And I think it's much, much better for us to try to understand where we are going than help forge that future. And so additional generations of West Virginia students can prosper. And I regret there's not a bigger crowd here tonight. We had a nice turnout in Charleston, and we look forward to hearing from those who are here tonight. And then I believe we have some folks online. Correct?
We do.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I don't have a whole lot to say, except we have great hope that this could lead us to a good place. But we have to get people together and agree to talk to one another so we can offer our ideas to the university in a systematic fashion. So that's where we are. Thank you.
The process here tonight is we'll ask anyone who chooses to speak to come up here so that they can be recorded, because we definitely want proceedings to be recorded. And your picture will be up there on that screen, the same as mine is. You'll be able to see yourself here. I hope that doesn't rattle, but I hope that you are willing to step up here and talk tonight about your vision of what West Virginia University should be, could be. And when you step up here, please identify yourself and why you're here tonight. So, can I get either of you to speak since, you know?
Yeah, this comes.
Yeah. I'm not sure that folks who are here are prepared necessarily to stand up and speak. I know they came to hear, but it's all hands on deck, folks, and we need to hear what you have to say. So if you would, please prepare to step up here and talk about, if you have only questions, maybe you don't have a fully realized idea about the university of the future, but if you have questions, we need to hear those too. It's an important part of our report that we intend to make this coming Friday. So.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Are we ready to start? Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Carl Irwin. I retired in 2018 after 50 years at WVU. I was probably here around the time you guys graduated. I was a new professor in the math department in 1970 and 71. But so yeah, I tried to be creative, and I think creativity is vital to the way we move forward. I really like your idea of vision, creating a vision for the university. The university, WVU, can be a driver of innovation. Research is part of the core requirement and expectation for every faculty member. Conducting research, that requires a certain amount of creativity and work and dedication. And some of that research is commercializable, especially if you're in an applied area and you've got grad students working on certain kinds of projects. You can commercialize and I think that should be part of the long-term vision of WVU, should be to encourage research, number one, but secondly, to create incentives for commercializing that research. Now, I didn't take a step in that direction when I was at WVU, because I went from being a math professor to being at the National Research Center for Coal and Energy. I was a program developer, and so I developed all kinds of programs. And I remember Create West Virginia, and I thought, that's really a nice sounding title for an organization. And I don't know if you all ever heard of Transtech Energy or Industries of the Future West Virginia or programs like that that I was involved in. And in particular, the last program I worked with was called Transtech, Transitional Technologies. It's a given that West Virginia is an energy state. It's a given that energy scene is changing. It's changing. If you watch the news every night, every day, you will see what climate change is leading to around the world. So, but West Virginia is also a coal state. It's a challenge that West Virginia can be a part of the transition from fossil to renewable energy. You don't have to do that overnight, but you have to create incentives, opportunity to move along at an incremental pace. That's what we're going to
Somebody's not on mute. Somebody on there needs to mute. Let me just say.
Someone on here tonight is not muted. Please mute your microphone, and then Corey Zinn, who's moderating the Zoom part, you can unmute when you have your moment to speak. So Carl, come back. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Well, I just think part of the vision, the long-term vision, it can be the near-term vision, is the university can provide incentives for research and for commercializing research. And transitional energy technologies, that's what Transtech was all about. We used to have a series of annual conferences, just like Create West Virginia did. And actually, they've continued this. A lady named Angela Schock, who's a terrific program director and program manager, she's now part of technology transfer. She was my right-hand person when I was at WVU. And so Angela's done a great job, and other people have also done a good job with continuing the Transtech program. And they have a conference coming up the 20th and 21st of September. It's going to be here in Morgantown, down at the, is it Marriott now, the waterfront conference center down there. And so I think if you want to go to that on the 20th, that's a Wednesday. Wednesday evening, they're having present pitches by startup companies. And I know at least one of them is based at WVU. Maybe there's more. And maybe some of the people who applied to make a pitch are from WVU. That's what we encouraged with the Transtech conference. But anyway, that's the 20th and 21st of September. You can go to the website, transtech.wvu.edu, I think. Anyway, if you Google Transtech Energy, I think you're going to get there. And you will see something about the 2023 conference. That's something that I was part of starting that idea of an annual conference because I got inspiration from Colorado, to tell you the truth, what they were doing out there. So anyway, thank you to Create West Virginia. Good luck. I'll be glad to help out anyway.
That's very good news. All right.
When we started Create West Virginia all those years ago, I'm trying to adjust it so we're not looking up people's, what we hoped for, and what we got to some degree, was we wanted a lot of collaboration. We wanted everybody that was doing good things in West Virginia, who had something to bring to the table. We definitely wanted that whole collaborative spirit. We hope to encourage that. And we learned a lot in the process of starting this Create West Virginia organization. I worked for 10 years pretty hard with Create West Virginia. And then I handed the baton to a young man who's operating the Zoom part here. His name's Corey Zen. And so I'm going to ask Corey to speak for a few minutes. Corey was a recent graduate of WVU when I first met him. And I was excited by his energy and his ideas. And he was definitely the next generation. So Corey, tell them a bit about your experience, and then we'll open the floor for some more comments here.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel like I don't want to fill up too much air with my story because I'd love to hear from more people. That's what this is all about, trying to get more input from more people. We've been concerned, that the process hasn't had a lot of transparency, and that was kind of our number one thing, is we wanted more input. So that's why we're doing our survey. If you haven't done that survey, I'll pop it in the chat again here. And if you don't have enough time to say all your comments, there's more time, you can do it there. tinyurl.com/WVU Vision Survey. But yeah, my name's Corey Zinn. I'm the executive director of Create West Virginia. I've loved working with Becky on all projects, and I'm so glad that her and Dan came, motivated to work on this. And I think it's really important because, yeah, as we've been doing these sessions, it's, it gets hammered in more and more, and all the passion I hear for liberal arts, and kind of just a lot of perspectives that I maybe hadn't even considered, and that's kind of why we do this, to hear from everyone about, what is the importance of foreign languages or math or arts. I'm personally, I have a lot of computer science background. My sort of call to fame is creating wheeldecide.com with my brother, Gareth Lewis, who went to U of M, and he's still up there in Detroit, and we still partner on that project. It's like a decision maker tool if you want to decide where to go for lunch. I actually created it with my brother remotely at the mountain lair, as I was on the meal plan trying to decide where to eat. And I said, I don't really care, actually. I'm sick of these 5 places. I'd love to flip a coin if it had 5 sides. And so that's where Wheel Decide kind of was born. And that's actually enabled me to, be an entrepreneur and dip my hands in a lot of, self-motivated ventures. And so I mostly focus on, video production and creative consulting through my company, Falling Tree Media, and doing a lot of work. And I really got a lot of work just starting, meeting with Becky and getting connected with Create West Virginia. And I'm grateful for a lot of the connections there, learning about this whole entrepreneurial network and people just making it happen here despite the odds and the powers that be. So, and I've been expressing a lot of my experiences at WVU kind of with an, now understanding, oh yeah, I've got an entrepreneurial brain, no wonder I was sort of acting in the way I was. But I kind of was jumping around majors, really wanted to take as many classes as I could that felt relevant to me, and still didn't take all the stuff that I wanted to. A lot of my skills, like in video production and creative stuff, have all been self-learned, and coding and web development, which, I'm not hugely proficient coder, but I get by, and would have loved to, take more classes, but it's such a pain to change majors. I took for a time I had a multidisciplinary studies degree, and was later discouraged, mostly by peers, that comments that this wasn't a real degree kind of scared me out of it. And so I ended up in marketing and got a music technology minor, of which I was the first to graduate with, kind of just taking the classes while they said, I think it'll be a minor by the time you graduate. So hope that works out. But I ran with it and I didn't worry too much about the degree. I just really loved the classes and the faculty, and everybody at the CAC was awesome. I guess I could speak for a couple other people that I wasn't as favorable about, but the people I worked most closely with, I just felt so empowered and really learned so much about electronic composition and recording technology, especially. And I've really, just branched into all kinds of stuff in the workplace. And it kind of drives home even more that the economy of today requires so much more interconnectivity between fields and industries. And I really think that's where the future is. And that's what I'd like to see with WVU myself. I think it could seem like a steep ask to say, well, let's keep, adding on assets and building up these colleges and these and all the research we're doing and try to collaborate colleges and innovate. But I think that's a huge investment, and I think we'll see some returns in the long term. And I think some of the things that have been discussed are more short-sighted kind of solutions, if you want to call it that. So that's a little bit about me and my background and why I'm here, and I'm excited to hear about other folks and their backgrounds and what they're passionate about at WVU and what they'd like to see. So I think there's so much opportunity, and I think, us entrepreneurs, we get kind of excited in a weird way when everything's on fire because we get to build something else. So we're hoping to inspire a little bit in times of fear, because I know it has been really scary with WVU, and we also just went through COVID, or still are going through it. So there's been a lot. And so I'd love to hear more from, I don't know if there's more people in person that want to speak, but I know we've got people on Zoom that would be ready to, I think. So,
Yeah, why don't we move to Zoom here and tell our most recent guest how we're going to do this. Thanks.
okay. I wonder if whoever is with GLC, I wonder if you'd come on. You were on early. Global Language Center. Who do we have? Oh, sorry, I'm unmuting you now. Or I'm asking you to unmute.
Thank you. There I am. This is David Mitchell.
Would you mind turning on your video, or?
Oh, I can, but it's an awful view behind me.
Okay, well.
Let me see if I can do that without. There we go. Okay, start my video. And blur my background. There we go. That's a little bit better. Can you still hear me, Corey?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. David Mitchell, graduate of WVU with a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, 1971. And I thought I would never leave the state. It's where I wanted to stay. It's what I knew, what I understood. But then I started meeting people from outside the state, namely people from Boeing Aerospace in Washington, D.C., in Seattle, Washington, and people in leadership positions in Washington, D.C. I got my eyes open to there's more to the world than just West Virginia. And I began to realize that world. And ultimately, even though I didn't want to do it, I fell into an entrepreneurial position, a management position, which included a lot of entrepreneurship. And while I refused to be a manager in the beginning, I suddenly find myself with 5 people, then 50 people, and then 500 people, and ultimately 2,000 people reporting to me. All because I turned out to be a better business leader than I was an engineer. My concern is that WVU still looks inward, still too much inward looking. And there's no grand solution in mind here. I have one, but you can tell me whether it'll work or not. To give you a couple indications of looking inward, I remember a few years ago, there was an engineering student who'd received $50,000 for some project that he developed, he and a friend had developed. And I thought, well, there we go, $50,000. He can monetize that. He can make something out of it. So I called the dean. He had no idea what happened. I called the department chair. He had no idea what happened. So finally I found the student, and he'd spent all the money. I don't know on what. I jokingly say beer and pretzels, but I don't know on what. But it certainly wasn't in trying to build a company out of his idea. And that just showed a lack of some spirit or entrepreneurial spirit, that here somebody had given him $50,000, the university or some donor, and he just blew it all. The more I try these ideas around, I find out that throughout WVU, this same idea holds. And when I've gone back to speak to graduating seniors in electrical engineering, now computer science, electrical engineering, I do a survey of where they think they would like to go next. I get the answer, well, I'd like to go to Washington, D.C. and work for the federal government. Sorry, that's no entrepreneurial spirit. That's a comfort job. That's a secure job. Where's the excitement? Well, then they say, well, I'll go to Charleston and work for a chemical plant. And finally, well, I've got a job with a coal mine. I'll work in a coal mine. I mean, it's just, people seem so tied to the state of West Virginia and afraid to make the leap outward. So one idea I threw out at a recent WVU committee meeting was, why not take WVU private? I mean, the university, as I understand, only gets 5–10% of its funding from the state. Why would we ever want to have 5% or 10% funding when the state, with all the rules and regulations that go with it? Maybe somebody can answer that question. I think, though, that would break the mold if we were able to do that.
Wow.
All right.
That's
Well, we can-
an interesting idea, certainly. That's what we want. We want interesting ideas. I heard once when people were talking about entrepreneurialism, that often the idea that sounds the wackiest is actually the best. The one that says, oh, that'll never work. You know, FedEx was one of those ideas that would never work. There are some other really amazing examples of ideas that would never work that turned out to be fabulous. What would happen, you know, if it's always good to open your brain and not say no. Part of the entrepreneurial and the creative process is just considering everything, all the ideas. So,
I think it's, you want to speak, don't you?
yes, well,
Well, I can.
you can. Would you like to?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I did not.
We want to give
prepare.
everyone in the room here an opportunity to speak. And there was another woman who just joined us, and I'm not sure where she went.
Deborah Jensen, she is from the foreign language department.
Yes, well, I hope she will speak. So be patient out there in Zoom land. We'll definitely ask you to speak. But Mrs. Irwin, if you would come up.
Okay. Now this is. Well, this is going to be improvised. I want to briefly just talking about
What was your name, Miss?
basically the importance of foreign languages.
Tell us your name and how you're connected with the university.
Okay. My name is Gertrude Irwin, and I am alumnus of WVU. I am retired from teaching foreign languages, primarily in West Virginia. So let me give you a little background. You hear my accent. I'm German. I grew up in Germany. I'm like you, the first in my family who went to university there. And grew up in a small town in the post World War II years. And I never forget when we went on a school trip, and there was a group of students who spoke French. And I was so fascinated, and I just looked over there. And, you know, and then I was lucky enough that in our school, we called it the gymnasium, the college-bound high school. I had a fabulous English and French teachers. And 5 of us in our class decided to study foreign language because that was important as math and chemistry and anything else. You know, anyhow, when I graduated from the University of Erlangen near Nuremberg, and then did my student teaching, which you do in the school itself with the foreign language teachers, and got my certificate to teach properly in a German gymnasium or college-bound high school, or lycée, as you say in French. I have relatives in the United States, and I always wanted to come here, among other countries, and actually got a Fulbright. Became as an instructor. I came here to Georgia State College at the time, today Georgia State University in Atlanta, and taught there for several years, but I also got married too. And after my husband graduated, got his PhD, we came to Morgantown, West Virginia. And I raised our 2 daughters, but also took courses, and everybody said, you are German, but without a degree, they're not going to take you. So I just worked on my master's in German, and which was fine, and got a minor in French just for the heck of it. And anyhow, started then teaching first in Preston County at the middle school level. We taught French and English. I had to, since English was a foreign language for me, I had to pass an exam, and I passed it. So I also took education classes in English, how to write essays and how the literature, how to teach it, which was very, very important. And anyhow, make a long story short, I ended up then here in Morgantown, at Morgantown High School, and taught 22 years German and English. English, of course, to the natives. Well, I felt I feel very strongly about foreign languages in West Virginia to West Virginia students. My students at Morgantown High, for example, they thought the Germans were all Nazis. That was at the time of Hogan Heroes, and in the, in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. And I just wanted to, it was very important for me to show them the true Germany. The Germany is modern. It is no longer a Nazi country, you know, it is. And eventually that also led me then to have an exchange program with my hometown in Germany. I had, in order to foster, open the world up to my students. Of course, some, you know, here at the university, it's a university, and some had parents, they already had been all over the world, Europe especially, but most of them have not. And anyhow, then from many years, starting in the late 80s through 2001, when I retired, every few years. So Germans came here for 3 weeks around Easter time, and German students and their English teacher. And then after school was over, I took my students over to my hometown, put them in families, So they learn, practice their language. That was always very important for me, that they learn their language. And then, and I think that's probably the proudest thing I did. A lot of these students have connections today. And so, in fact, today, one of my students lives here in Morgantown who taught his girls German. He only talks German. He's American, talks German. And his partner going to a small village near my hometown, and there's his girls for 3 months going to a German school. But when, this is way too long what I'm talking about, but I wanted to say, when I heard that foreign languages are going to be eliminated, the department is eliminated, and then a few Chinese and Spanish will not even be a degree, but they continue teaching it. I was, even though I've been retired since 2001 and got away from, foreign language department and all that, I was so shocked that I wrote a letter to the Board of Governors, which got together with one of the German professors who was a neighbor, and we wrote a letter to the Board of Governors about the importance of foreign language. My creativity, my vision for West Virginia is, I'm very concerned that foreign languages are not only kept here at the flagship university, but that they are put into the schools, K through 12, especially middle and high schools. That's where you get the students excited, but you need, and I understand, it can't be every little small town, but at least in some towns. And we had a strong West Virginia Foreign Language Teachers Association, which still exists. All the people who it's still a strong organization, signed the letter to the Board of Governors. So we hope that West Virginia is not only looking inward, but embraces the world out there, and not only expects, like with the Ascent programs, that people come here and settle down, but they go out and it's going to be mutual, and they can learn from each other.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Irvin, or Dr. Schenker.
Thank you so much. We heard that one of the reasons why they chose to eliminate the foreign languages, world languages department, is that students are not interested in learning foreign languages. And I wondered if they'll stop teaching math because students don't want to trouble themselves to learn math. Or, I think that part of the university could get very creative in influencing elementary students and secondary students to have an interest in foreign languages. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. By the time the student gets to the university level, a lot of opportunity has been wasted. So I think that West Virginia, my vision for the future West Virginia University is one that is far more engaged in the smallest communities throughout the state in opening up a vision of what we can be and who we should be. We are not necessarily only fit for working in coal mines. Yes, Carl.
Well, I have a suggestion for Create West Virginia.
Will you come up and speak here? And then we'll open the floor to those of you who are out there in Zoom.
Okay, I have a suggestion for Create West Virginia. there's everything I've read so far about this transformation has been depressing. I know professors that are looking for jobs. I'm retired. I don't want to look for a job. But an active professor who's creative, who's teaching, who's an expert in their field, I think half of the faculty are about looking for a job. Because of this, everything is a disappointment. There's nothing inspiring.
Carl, could you speak him over the computer just so we can hear you a little better?
Move this way.
Oh.
There you go.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I have not heard any news out of the administration which is inspiring. Corey talked about inspiration. Is it Knight, the other gentleman spoke? He spoke about creative ideas. You want to get people engaged. Okay, so let's encourage the university to pick at least maybe 5 to 10 things that they can do to encourage interest and excitement and something that people can engage with. I mean, my wife here talks about foreign language a lot. And so that's something, create exchange programs like she did, and create opportunities for faculty to partner with companies. What's the incentive for me to go out and partner with a company that's interested in my research? Well, there should be an incentive. You should get a grad student, or you should get a stipend or something. So create things that will engage the faculty, that you can go out and partner. You talked about partnership, Rebecca, and you've partnered with so many people in Create West Virginia. And that's a terrific way to bring the outside into the university. Let's make it a partnership, okay?
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
All right, Corey, why don't you open it up to the folks who have joined us on Zoom?
Yes, lots of folks to hear from. I wonder, I'm picking on Lynn. Would you like to speak? You were in, I think, a little earlier.
Okay, I could speak for a minute or two. I am a graduate of...
And if you would put your video on, you don't have to if you don't want.
Okay. Yes. I graduated with a master's in education and reading, and went on to actually write a lot of grants that got millions of dollars for the area, and ran a program called Kaleidoscope, an after-school program for 12 years, and employed university students to come, someone from philosophy, put the Big Bad Wolf on trial, that kind of thing, very creative stuff. And, you know, we left the state for about 10 years. My husband was a professor at WVU and came back in retirement, hoping to be engaged in the community and continue to help and, you know, offer years of experience. I really feel disheartened at what's gone on. Both of my children have studied foreign languages, not all at WVU, but still. One daughter lives in Germany now and teaches English. You know, it's so disappointing. And things like cutting out graduate assistants, graduate programs. I couldn't have gotten my master's in reading without that. I couldn't have afforded the tuition. I couldn't have afforded to not have any money coming in, and we would have left the state. I was prepared to do that if I couldn't teach here. So, you know, you have to think about the consequences of these actions. And it saddens me to think, you know, we came back here hoping to reconnect and to contribute again. But I don't know how long, and I also don't think that people understand the consequences for the community, because if there's an exodus, the economic base of the region is going to be decimated. You know, who's going to buy a house here? Who will come to the region and participate and help. It's so short-sighted, it doesn't make any sense. And Guy and others in authority and power should be ashamed. That's my statement. And I also wrote to WVU Foundation before I heard about this plan anyway, and said I will no longer contribute to WVU for the foreseeable future because of the appalling cuts and the way things were done here. I think more people need to talk about that and the effect it may have in the region.
It's a very
Thanks.
important aspect here, and I'm glad that you've said that, because you've expressed tonight what I'm hearing from many quarters. All right, Corey.
Let's hear from Judy Ball if you'd like to speak.
Sure. I was born and raised in West Virginia. I grew up in Worth County. Tiny little school system, very poor school system. I had no foreign language in high school, none. But I ended up graduating with a bachelor's degree in political science from WVU. And that never should have happened for somebody like me. I was never encouraged to go to college at all. I was actually discouraged from going to college, as most kids in this state, a lot of them still are. I sit here today with a master's degree and a PhD in public administration. And the reason I have those 2 degrees is because faculty at WVU, I took a couple of graduate level classes in the PA department when I was an undergrad, finishing my poli-sci degree. So I took these graduate level classes, and a professor in the public administration department said, you need to go to the Maxwell School at Syracuse for your master's degree. And I said, well, I can't do that. Look at who I am. And he and the chair of the department at that time and another faculty member in the PA department, 3 of them, absolutely would not let it go. They insisted that I apply to Syracuse, that I apply for the master's program in public administration. And finally, I just gave up and I said, all right. And I scrounged together the money for the application fee because I was a poor student. And I sent it in and I got accepted at the #1 school of public administration in the country. And when they accepted me, they gave me an assistantship, tuition reimbursement, and a stipend to live on. So I went to Syracuse. I went off to Syracuse. None of this would be counted, by the way, in any of the metrics that are being used today to figure out whether these programs are successful or not. But I went off to Syracuse and I went to get a master's degree, but I got involved in a research project my first year there, and I fell in love with doing research. And I applied to the PhD program and ended up doing a PhD in public administration. I didn't want to teach. I got a grant from a federal agency to support my dissertation. And that agency used their dissertation grant program as a pipeline to recruit people to come work for them. And I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, I spent my entire career with the federal government. Actually, I'm not sorry at all. It was a wonderful situation because my job changed every few years over my 20+ year career. And one of the things I learned to do was I learned how to be political in a situation where politicians and administrators don't want to give you money to support your program. I learned how to deal with other agencies. I learned to be entrepreneurial in that I had to keep a program going with do more with less every single year. When I retired, I moved to Oregon. And I got to tell you, things are different in Oregon. But I moved to the same city that Oregon State University is in. Oregon State is the land-grant university for the state of Oregon. And I learned a few things about how they did things differently. One of the things they did was they built partnerships across the entire region with community colleges in order to build a pipeline into the four-year university and eliminate some of the barriers that community college students run into in transferring credits and such. I learned about other sort of entrepreneurial features of the university because it was in the same situation as WVU and not getting a whole lot of help from the legislature. So research grants and hanging on to their R1 research designation was really, really important. And of course, now they're in this horrible situation with the PAC2. But while I was in Corvallis, I decided to do other things. When I was working, I never did volunteer work, but while I was in Corvallis, I decided to run for the school board, and I served 7 years on the school board, and I ended up serving on the planning commission. And all of this came about because of the wonderful background I had gotten and the foundation I had gotten being sort of launched from WVU. After about 8 years in Oregon, I decided I needed to leave. And it only took me 2 years to figure out that I wanted to move back to West Virginia. So after 38 years away, I took a trip, I bought a house, and I moved my entire life from Oregon back to West Virginia, back here in Morgantown. And so I am so dreadfully concerned at what I see going on with the university now, because I know how there must be other people, other kids, or not so kids. I was an adult when I finished my undergrad at WVU. There must be people who are getting the kind of support and help that I got, and that's not even being considered. And those kids won't have any place else to turn. And so what the administration of WVU is doing just makes no sense. I keep reading in the paper that all these other, admittedly smaller, but other universities in the state are having these big enrollment increases. And all I hear from Dee and his ilk is our problem is declines in enrollment. Well, why is that? If there are ways to recruit students, are they recruiting students? When AB closed, I immediately saw other places in West Virginia who were opening doors, reaching out a hand and saying, come here, we'll help you. I saw none of that from WVU. And I don't know why. I saw one story about WVU. There were some students in a health services program at AB, Aldous and Broadus, who their program obviously had been eliminated along with the entire college. And WVU has such a program. And the report I read was, sorry, no room. You can't come here. That made no sense whatsoever to me. So I think that some creative thinking by people at WVU, not high-paid consultants, but people who are committed to WVU, can come up with ways to get out of this mess. And one of the ways has got to be going to Charleston and demanding that the state do its job.
Thank you. That's wonderful, Judy. Everything you said. And the program in public administration is on the chopping block.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So we just had another person, two others come into the room. I see some other people on Zoom that haven't had an opportunity to speak yet. It's 6:25, Corey, so let's open it up and have some more voices from Zoom.
Yes, I'm curious about Janine Atoji. Am I saying that right? Would you like to speak?
Yes, Corey, thank you. I'm a graduate of West Virginia University. I got a BA in musical arts, which was a collaborative degree between the College of Eberly Arts and Sciences and the Creative Arts Center at the time. I too personally feel that the programs, they are gutting the very essence of the flagship University of West Virginia. I had a minor in foreign languages. I had 4 years of German at WVU. It helped me greatly when I went to another university to continue with a graduate program. One of the main tools in musicology, for example, is German. Their encyclopedia for music is one of the main tools is written in German, so it helps to a great degree. I also was very involved in marching band. I had a very well-rounded degree. I think people need to be well-rounded. You can't just focus and say, take all foreign language or all music classes. For example, I had a couple of classes in economics as well. Long story short, I taught piano privately for a while. I had to decide if I wanted to teach in the public schools or not, and decided to take a different course. What I did afterwards, I decided that I was going into computer networking. My foundational degree at West Virginia University gave me the skills that I need to be able to apply it to another field. Therefore, I just went to a technical school to learn how to do computer networking. I just needed the nuts and bolts because basically the critical thinking and everything had been taught to me at WVU. I would suggest, I don't know if it's possible. Can we possibly do a GoFundMe to fund the Department of World Languages? It's just so disheartening that they're getting rid of it, especially in world languages, the English and the Creative Arts Center classes. A lot of them were smaller classes, not the 300-person classes. And I think that's very valuable in education, that you actually learn, that you have the smaller size classes as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I know that we're kind of low on time, but Terry Pickett did raise her hand. Do we have more? And Robin, Godfrey. Do we have more people in the room? Are we able to go over a little bit? What's
Are you
the?
ready to speak? No. Okay. You?
Okay. Robin was first. I think Robin raised his hand first.
Okay, and we have another guest who's joined us in the room. So as soon as a couple more people have spoken on Zoom, we have this room for as long as we want it. So go ahead.
I'll defer to people who are in the room, if that's your pleasure.
Ron, go ahead, because I need to discuss.
Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm Robin Godfrey. I'm a WVU graduate, graduated in the top 80% of my law class in 1976. My two of my three sons graduated there, one Phi Beta Kappa. My father-in-law, W.T. O'Farrell, graduated from the law school in 1929. My sister-in-law, Sheila O'Farrell Christensen, graduated from there as well. My brother is a retired professor emeritus at Ripon College. First of all, I want to thank Rebecca Kimmons, Dan Page, Morgan King, Corey Zinn for your courageous action in holding these public hearings, which really should have been sponsored and held by the university. And so I commend you for the commitment you've made to do this. I've heard it said that proper funding by the legislature is a short-term solution. Proper funding by the legislature of the major public institution of higher learning in West Virginia is not a short-term solution. It is what should have been a major part of the solution all along. And has been pointed out for some of our citizens, WVU was the only option for higher education. We can't just say, oh, they can go out of state, right, and pay out of state tuition. You can imagine. Secondly, the manner and haste that the way this plan has been put forth, and it is a radical plan, with little or no input from the faculty, students, and citizens of West Virginia, to me reveals just how ill thought out the plan is. This is nothing represents this better than the World Languages Department. And it did not surprise me, by the way, that they tossed a couple of bones by including and Chinese. I'm not convinced of that. 22% of the households in the United States speak a language other than English or Spanish. We live not a bilingual, a multilingual country and in a global economy. And you're eliminating the World Languages Department, seriously? And the only PhD math program in the state, it seems like math is just so foundational to the future. So who's responsible for this? Well, of course, the Board of Governors should be governing. They should be fostering and supporting opportunities for widening, not narrowing, education opportunities, and for the faculty. Secondly, I cannot understand the patent abandonment to the point of open hostility by the legislature, the governor, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and from our congressional delegation, not a peep. You would think that this was some little bitty school. I taught a one-room school in McDowell County for 1 year and a 3-room school in Bayard. This is the major university. Not a word from them. Why is that? Is this the pride of West Virginia? They don't act like it. This administration at this university is charged with the welfare of the university and its students and faculty. The deficit that has occurred on their watch, the result of their management in the face of patent demographic data that was available to them. Yet I see them bearing no responsibility, not even a symbolic reduction in salary that you would think simply to set an example. No shame in how this is being presented. And the way it was, the timing of its presentation to students was simply unconscionable. In one instance, I know a student who got the message of her major being dropped the day she moved into her dorm. I mean, it could not have been mismanaged worse. President Gee said, we're going to solve this problem in Morgantown. I mean, not even advocating for his main client. He's supposed to be a lawyer. His main client is the university, not going to the legislature and saying, we need some help here. But who is we? What is this we? It's on the backs of the faculty and the students, and with no sacrifices or consequences for those who've created the problem, for those in administration. The result of this is twofold. There will be irreversible damage
to the students, faculty, and especially WVU's and the state's reputation. You know, I know, this is all over the papers across the nation, what is being done here. And it is not bold. Guy is not a disruptor as he fancies himself, but in my view, more a destroyer. And I think another result will be a precipitous decline in enrollment next year because of the uncertainty that's been cast, not just on those majors that are being eliminated, but students wondering, am I next? So I would urge the Board of Governors to do some governing, do your job, and vote no on September 15. And let's embark on a longer term plan that is more inclusive, better thought out, and especially doesn't eliminate majors that are the future of our, not only our country, but a global economy. Thanks for holding the session and for letting me have my say.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Alvin, you're getting applause here in the room. Thank you.
I love applause.
All right. Anyone else on Zoom land? And then we'll ask you to come up and speak.
Okay. I had actually, this is Terry Pickett, live in Charleston. I have more questions than anything else. Number one, do we know what individuals are actually behind this? You know, you say the Board of Governors, you say this, you say that, but what individuals are behind it? Does Gordon Guy's vote of no confidence, which was huge, will that have any impact? And also, will it have any impact if WVU can no longer give out Phi Beta Kappa keys? Because from what I understand, if they abolish the languages, they can no longer be eligible for Phi Beta Kappa. And what difference does that make? So if anybody has answers, would love to hear them. Thank you. And thank you, Create West Virginia, for doing this.
Thank you, Terry. And yeah, those are great questions. I know the first one, oh, Kate, are you wanting to answer some of those?
No, go ahead and answer that. I have something I wanted to say later.
Okay. Sorry. I know the first, I mean, I don't know what it's hard to say what the impact is of the vote, but there was a report or an announcement that came out from the WVU Board of Governors, and hopefully I can share that link with you all in the chat. But it didn't sound like they were really gonna put much weight on those decisions, which is pretty. There were 7. Morgan, can you pull up some information actually, or do you want to report on this? Do you have a better?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So as some of you may have heard, but I'll go ahead and give a recap in case you hadn't. Today at noon, the Faculty Senate at WVU held a meeting and 2 resolutions were put forth. The first was a vote of no confidence in President Gordon Gui, and the second was a vote to freeze this academic transformation. The vote of no confidence in Gordon Gui passed 797 for, 100 against, and then 8 invalid votes because some of it was an online process and some of those votes were invalidated. Regardless, it was a massive margin. The next vote was to freeze the academic transformation. It also passed 747 for, 79 against, and 9 invalid. So some folks I think had to depart since this meeting was in the middle of the workday. But regardless, it was a pretty clear message. However, these resolutions don't require the university administration nor the state government to follow what they say, but it is certainly a very powerful symbol showing that the faculty have a very clear consensus on what they'd like to see. Immediately after that meeting, the WVU Board of Governors released a statement, and I'll quote a portion of it. They said, quote, "The Board of Governors unequivocally supports the leadership of President Gee and the strategic repositioning of WVU, and rejects the multiple examples of misinformation that informed these resolutions. So if you're looking at the chat and if you're attending in person, we can get you that link. But there's a link to that statement from the Board of Governors. So very quickly, they had a statement ready saying that they don't support what the faculty voted in large margins for. So that's just an update. What that means in terms of any impact, I can just give my personal opinion. I think it is extremely impactful just to show the faculty coming together and voting for this. However, in terms of like practical impact, it's unclear as to whether it will like translate into actionable items, but it's certainly a powerful moment of solidarity among the faculty.
Thanks so much, Morgan. That's great insight. And as for the second question, I don't think we have an immediate answer, but we can look into that. Do we have someone ready live there? Becky, it looks like.
Hi.
Who do we
My
have?
name is, hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. My name is Alice Meehan. I also am a graduate of WVU, bachelor's in 78 in psychology and master's in 97 in rehab counseling. My son just graduated last year from here and is in Brooklyn, New York. 4 of his college classmates, high school classmates that went to college, are also up there looking for jobs. They will be gainfully employed, I'm sure. I'm having difficulty understanding why the state and why our administration is, I don't know how to put it any better than to say it seems like we are running an anti-globalist kind of situation here. Not just here in our state, but maybe around the country. Maybe we're setting a trend. But if that is the case, and there is a bias against Morgantown for whatever reason, or a bias against WVU versus Marshall garnering a lot of funds, I just don't understand. And I would like to know, and I would like to, if somebody needs to be called out on this, let's, instead of calling them out, let's call them in. I would like to discuss this further to find out just what is behind all of this, and why the buildings and the infrastructure and all of this building concrete things takes precedence over our students. It's how it seems to me. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, so I really think that our students come first, and that if our numbers are down, we need to be recruiting more, and we need to be going to our schools more to get these kids in here and to give them a shot at a decent education rather than trimming back. We should be embellishing. So, thank you.
Thanks so much. I think we share a lot of fears there.
Yes.
All right, I believe Kate Long had something she wanted to add.
I just wanted to say that I've heard parents or directly from one young person today that they're leaving WVU. And, you know, if this goes forward, and they must know this is happening. I'm with the previous speaker. What is going on here? What really is going on here? And, you know, why are they not reaching out to those AB students? And I'm starting to think they don't really want West Virginia students, you know, and that they're aiming for something else. And I know that's out there. So that thought just occurred to me. There's something behind all this that doesn't make sense. And so pause, find out. and then, you know, get some kind of foundation and then dream, you know, or have the dreams ready. That's all I'm saying. I mean, they must know this. Pitt is gaining students. You know, the student I talked to today is going to Penn State, transferring.
Well, I want to thank everyone who's come tonight to be in the room. I want to thank the people who have joined on Zoom. There's still time. I think there's an assembly of students tonight on campus somewhere, so there's time to get there if any of you want to join them tonight. But Mr. Page and I will be working on compiling what we've learned in these 4 meetings that we've had, and this is just the beginning. This is a preliminary report that we're going to make. And this is the beginning. We want to open this discussion. It's not over. Thank you.
What are you going to do next?
What are we going to do next? Well, the next thing, the immediate thing, is to compile this report, which we'll release to the media and to anyone who wants to see. Ensure that the report will be available on createwv.org, so you'll be able to see that. And then we will regroup and ask for input on next steps. Yes. Come up. Come up.
Is there any way that we can get this situation nationally televised? I know that there have been a dozen articles, you know, from major networks and papers and New York Times and all the rest. There's a dozen anyway, at least, maybe more. I'm wondering if we couldn't get this televised or on TV somehow. Somebody has a connection with NBC or ABC or CBS, any of the major networks, or CNN or Anderson Cooper. I don't know. I just think that this is something that's so critically important for our, not just us to know, but for the country to know, because I think there's a trend going in the wrong direction.
Thank you. Again, sorry. Thank you very much. I think we'll end tonight. We'll adjourn. Adjourning doesn't mean ending. Adjourning means we're going to pause. So we'll see what's coming up next. We thank you, everybody, for your input, and we'll be in touch. Be on the lookout for what's next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
I know.